This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/MALMAG, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. If you're looking for some sticks for FMA, some cool t-shirts, or even a course on Dos Manos, have a stop by martialartslifestylemagazine.com and click on the store tab or on the courses tab for that course. This week I sit down in Marina del Rey and I talk with Henry Mosquera. Henry is originally from Venezuela, and we talk about how he got involved in martial arts there, as well as how he continued his martial art path after moving to the United States and attending the University of Miami, then moving to Los Angeles, and his time with Grandmaster Bong and more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. And I'm sitting here in the Marina del Rey, California, and catching up with an old friend that I would say I met. Actually, here there's a lot of interesting backstory. We're actually connected in ways, and we'll get to that. But I remember first meeting you. May have met you earlier, but I remember definitely meeting you at the Inosanto Academy of Martial Arts as a fellow student there. There we go. I think that fan kicked off now, so I think we're in good shape. Okay. So welcome, Henry Mosquera, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, I appreciate you coming over and having a chit-chat. So I guess let's just kind of start at the beginning. How did you get involved in martial arts? Where, when, how?
All right. Well, we need the harp sound. Let's go
back in time.
Well, I don't remember a time being a kid that wasn't part of my life. I'm the youngest of 3. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
That's where I was born and raised. And my old man, when I was a little kid, he apparently, I don't have memories of this, was in Kung Fu at the time. This is the early 70s.
Oh, wow.
So this is the time where...
So there was Kung Fu in Venezuela at this time. Oh, nice.
This is the time where Bruce Lee has taken the world by storm with Enter the Dragon.
Okay.
And, I guess you can call it Bruce Lee Mania, I think that's what they call it.
Oh, sure.
Exploded all over the world, and everybody was signing up for martial arts. So apparently my dad was one of those. And my brother, my older brother, he joined too. And I do remember his uniform. He had like an old, traditional Kung Fu, the black thing with the little white knots on the center. And
the frog button outfit, yeah.
And the little sandals and stuff. And we had an Enter the Dragon poster on our room that we share. So that it was always there. It was always a thing. On television, the cartoons that we used to watch were all anime, all Japanese cartoons from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? My theory is that probably they sold those cheap, and Latin American television is like, yeah, give us all of that.
Right.
Kids will eat that up, and we certainly did. So that, again, you're watching cartoons, and there's a samurai here, a ninja there, and
right.
So that has always been. I don't remember a time where that wasn't part of my life. My brother built some nunchucks out of a broomstick, which my mom was not happy about.
That's universal, man.
And he tested them on me, as he did everything, and I was, gullible enough to say yes to everything. When he took judo, I was his dummy. He threw around. So I think I was either 4 or maybe 5 years old the first time my mom signed me up for a class. Probably my brother wanted to do it, and I sort of said, okay, me too. And that started a strange journey of joining up. Something happens, stop doing it, move to another place or something else. And at this time, I don't know anything about styles. I don't know anything about anything. I am completely literate when it comes to the martial art. I'm a kid too. And this is pre-internet. So either you read it on a magazine or someone tells you, or otherwise you have no clue what you're doing. And so it was that sort of weird, like, okay, there's a martial arts academy near the house. So you sign up, and then something happens, or you don't have the consistency to go. And that followed me for a while until I reached about 15 or 16 years old, and I had a math tutor who was also a martial artist.
Oh, wow.
And
this was still in Venezuela?
This is still in Venezuela.
Wow.
Yeah, I left for college, so this is all still back then. And my tutor was a big kung fu guy. That was his background. And one day I was like, listen, I'm getting, because I kind of equate my thing with martial arts almost like being a drug addict.
Yes,
like
of course.
You
No,
quit,
me too.
You quit, and then I
try back in.
and I tried to convince myself, like, you know what, that's it. I'm gonna move on. Whatever, it's not for me. And sure enough, sooner or later, I start getting the pains. You know, it's like,
Right.
but that would be really cool to, you know. And I just like I tried to convince myself to stop, I convinced myself to go back.
Right.
So it's like that Pacino. It's like every time I want to go out, they
okay.
bring me back in. It's the same thing for me. So I started talking to him about it, and he said, Caracas sits, the city sits in a valley. So there's a lot of buildings on mountains and stuff. And the last place where I lived there was a building that was atop of a hill. So he said, well, that's interesting that you say that. When I asked him, like, I want to get back in, and what should I do? I said, well, ironically, at both sides of this mountain, you have two different academies by two really good instructors.
Oh, wow. So
on one side of the hill, at the bottom, there is I don't think it exists anymore. There was an academy by a gentleman called Marcelo Planchard, who was a very famous martial artist in Caracas. I don't know if the whole country, but definitely in the city he was famous. And one of his claims of fame was, he was a Shotokan guy. Again, this is when I started learning, what's that? Oh, that's another style. Oh, really? That's when I started, enlighten myself into the world of martial arts better. Started collecting Black Belt magazine, which helped a lot. And he said his one claim of fame that I remember was that when Van Halen came to play in Venezuela, and this is back in the David Lee Roth days. This is classic Van Halen. This is either late 70s, early 80s. You got to check the dates on that. Apparently on David Lee Roth's rider, he wanted a martial arts instructor because he was into martial arts.
Okay,
If you remember, but I know you.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The kicks, the spin.
Watch
kick.
any video of him and you see it, yeah.
So, and apparently this gentleman was the guy who, however brief their stay was in Venezuela, he was the guy who was training with him.
Wow.
So that's how I remember that name. And then on the other side of the hill was a Japanese gentleman by the name of Shoko Sato, who taught Shito-ryu karate.
Okay.
A style that I didn't know that until much later. It's not very well known in the U.S. I think the maximum exponent of it, at least fame-wise, was Fumio Demura.
Right, yeah.
Who most people will, the movie Karate Kid, he was Pat Morita, the gentleman who played Mr. Miyagi. He based his character on him.
And he was the stunt double.
And he was, that famous scene where the bad kids go beat up Daniel, and he shows up like I think he called him Spider-Man or something. He beats the crap out of him. That was Sensei Demura who show up. So So when he said Japanese, and at that time I'm a kid, I'm very biased, so it's like, well, if you want to learn something, you better learn it from the guy who comes from the place.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That was my very limited perception of things. And
biases, it's not bad. I mean, it's obviously if I want to learn to cook Chinese food, maybe
exactly.
But today's world's a little different because we are a lot more cosmopolitan, but at the same time.
Yeah, and you have people
years ago, that makes sense.
And you have people who, have studied with other people.
Right.
Like here in the U.S. is the perfect example. How many Americans learn from people from other cultures.
Right,
and
yeah.
Then they became incredible martial arts on their own terms.
Of course.
So, but at that age, what do you know? Like, so I already claim my ignorance about many things at that time. And then I said, well, what's the difference of styles? Because now I'm being introduced to this concept. I said, well, Shito-ryu has a little bit more kicks than Shotokan and stuff. And I was like, I'm sold. Like, because I've always been limber, and I always had a predilection for kicks. It sort of came natural to me. I can think better with my legs than with my hands. Let's put it that way. When I'm doing martial arts.
Wow.
Which I don't know if because I'm dyslexic, I don't know what it is, but the somehow kicks make more sense to me than hands. So sold. So I started training under Sensei Shokosato, who ended up becoming I think he still is. I'm not sure if he's alive, but. He's the president of the Shito-ryu Pan American Association.
Okay.
So he achieved a very high level. And again, this is the first time I become lucky. I follow a sort of stream of. I'm the guy from the street that walks into a place and says, I want to join up. And suddenly there is this amazing martial artist teaching. Like that's like the one area of my life that I've always been
lucky.
But dumb luck,
right.
Stupid dumb luck. And that was the first time. Like here is this great exponent of this style, and he's within walking distance from my house, which I used to walk to his dojo, and that really became my real first education in martial arts. That was my first belt test. First time I went to tournaments. The first time like I really was invested in doing this, and it wasn't because my brother was doing it or my dad was doing it or I saw it in a cartoon. This something that really came out of me wanting to do it. And at that time, my parents had been separated for a long time, so I was living with my mom. My mom wasn't crazy about the idea of me taking martial arts, and so we made a deal because I was a minor. So she's like, I'll sign you up, but I don't want to know anything about what happens there.
Wow.
Like,
do you know what her issue was with it?
I think the concept of having his kid being beaten up.
Oh, okay. No, that
it's
makes good sense.
That she's
sure.
like, I don't want to know.
Sure. Yeah.
And I took her on the deal. I said, okay, well, if you sign me up and you pay for it, you will not hear a peep from me. And well, that it came to play because different time, different country, different culture. Sensei Shokosato was a Japanese instructor. The Japanese martial arts have always been renowned for their toughness, right? It's about toughen people up. I'm not saying that other martial arts don't do that. I mean, Muay Thai, for God's sakes, if you don't get tough doing that,
then
nothing is going to get you tough.
That's right.
But at the time, especially, that was the thing. Like, the Japanese were about not just training to fight, but hardening your body and becoming tougher. So I'm sure that he watered things down for us. I'm sure that when he taught in Japan, it was a whole different animal.
Oh.
But when I compare the way I was trained as a kid to the way I saw, and eventually I ended up teaching kids here, I was like, and they said, oh, we're tough on the kids. I was like, well, okay, if you say so.
if you say so, sure.
If you say so. Yeah. Because everything that we did essentially would have either, sue him or call child support services or something.
Sure.
Many times I had to put on a long shirt or sweater to cover bruises and stuff because it was brutal.
Right.
There was very little difference between teaching. Well, I was a teen, so I was in the teen class, teenagers and adults. And what happened to me shortly after I joined is I was bigger than most kids. In Venezuela, people are, on average, not big. So I would be the kind of, I'm just 6 foot tall, which is okay.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to write home about. In Venezuela, that
it's taller than the average American man.
Okay, but in Venezuela, will make me very tall. Like I'm a head taller than
sure.
most people.
Yeah.
So I would be the guy that you will hire as a bouncer back in Venezuela.
Gotcha.
Here,
you'd be a star basketball player down there, right?
I would be a kicker in football, basically.
That's right.
Or play bench or something like that. It's funny because I have a friend of mine when I came here for college, he said, you're a big guy. You should join the football team. And I had no idea. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Meaning like the American football team?
American football team. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. One of the first classes I took, one of my classmates was I went to the University of Miami.
This is where we get to the connection, folks. Henry and I went to the University of Miami at the same time.
He played for the Hurricanes.
Right.
And
that's a major, you guys know, probably people listening, that's a major college program. So these are, you're not getting small guys who are also Rands. These are top level college athletes.
Well, the Rock was.
Yeah.
He went to UM and he was He was leaving as I was
we were
going in.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going in.
Yep.
So if you want to picture big dude, there's your big dude.
That's the UM. That's a prototype UM football player, the Rock.
And
exactly.
I don't know what position he played. I don't know anything about football. But the guy used to sit behind me, like next row behind me. Only one of his butt cheeks fit on the desk.
Okay.
Like 3/4 of his body were outside of the desk.
That's a lineman, probably.
And he always leaned forward.
Yeah.
Right? So he was always very close to me.
Right.
His bicep was bigger than my head. And when I saw that guy, it's like, you gotta be. This is like being run over by a truck.
Nice.
Like that guy will throw me like the ball. Like he will like, okay, here, catch him. Throw me across the field.
Now, did you live on campus?
About the first year.
What dorm were you in?
I'm terrible with names. The first
one of the towers or one of the.
No, I was always in a tower.
Okay.
One of the first ones was at the entrance. They have 2 buildings there. I forgot the name of them. That's where they threw me in first, but that was for.
Closest to the
main entrance.
To the workout center? Oh, to the main entrance. Okay, so that would have been over.
Where they had the palm trees and the sign and all of that.
Yeah, it was like going to school at Club Med. I mean, the funny thing is they've knocked down those towers now. I don't know if they're building new high rises, but those are somebody, another school friend recently sent me.
Oh, really?
A thing saying, I don't think, when's the last time you've been back to campus?
I haven't been in Miami.
Okay, so it's like, same here. Like I don't think we'd recognize it.
And they then dumped me in the 4 towers that were by just across the field from the frat houses.
Okay, so the intramural fields, got it.
So I bounced through like 3 or 4 different dorms there.
Yeah, they all look the same on the inside anyway.
Yeah. Well, it looked like a prison.
Which is what they were designed by. Same people that designed prisons.
Well,
the famous prison. Yeah, literally, you're
wonderful
just like, great.
job.
Exactly.
It felt just like that. So
that's funny.
So it was funny because going back to the thing, because I was bigger than most kids. Sensei Shokosato said, from now on, you got to train with adults. You're too big. Like I can have you, sparring and stuff with kids. Even though you're the same age, it's just too much. So I'm like, okay, fine. I didn't know at the time what I was signing myself up to, but I'm like, okay, sure. So here I am, about 16 years old, and I'm training with people who are, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and these are grown men. And they had no issue whatsoever beating the crap
out of a kid.
Wow. No issue whatsoever. Like I got my butt handed to me so many times by these guys in some of the worst way possible. But the mentality was, well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So
Right.
I'm like, okay, so these are the growing. I used to drive my mom crazy because one of the things we used to do was hit makiwara boards. You know, we were taught to punch that, you know, to make your knuckles stronger. And I took it to heart. So at home.
Now they had you punching this under 18?
Oh yeah.
Because it's funny, because I started in karate, right? And the rule was if you were under 18, they weren't having you punch that makiwara.
Oh no. Like there are no rules here.
Okay.
This is the law of the jungle.
Exactly. All
You
right.
know, if you survive, good for you. If not, you don't deserve to be here. You know, that was pretty much the attitude. And that was the attitude by everyone. It's not particular to this one studio or anything. That was
Right.
just the time and the culture and the, you know, like I understand nowadays. Like I look back as an adult and I go, oh my God, like
This was abuse.
Yeah, this was a bit like, where was the government? You know, but back then, I mean, everything was brutal. Everything was, you know, like if you're doing push-ups, people are walking on top of you. You know,
Yeah.
if you're stretching, I actually, I'm naturally flexible.
You're right. But you had people like hopping on your legs. and
Yes,
stuff. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I escaped all of that because
You could always
I
do the
was
splits.
always, I was always the most flexible guy.
Lucky.
Yeah, no, for sure, because people, what you just said, you will do like the butterfly stretch, you know,
Yeah.
you get your knees out and your feet in, and they will have someone of equal size, sometimes not, to stand on your legs so
Right.
you will open. Like this is the times that we're talking about. This is
Right.
not.
No,
you know,
I've been
sports
through that.
science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody talk about recovery. Nobody
No.
talk about, you know, concussions.
Hell, they didn't want you drinking water back then.
Nothing. You know, nobody was talking about nutrition. Nobody was
Right.
talking about concussions. Nobody was talking about anything. I mean, we used to spar, and thank God this was point-based sparring. So a lot of the times we didn't hit the head.
Yeah.
But
Or at least there wasn't combinations. It was like you got hit once, they stop.
and that's
You know,
it.
for the point or whatever. So it wasn't like you got hit
Repeatedly.
repeatedly. Yeah.
But all we had, we didn't have shin guards, we didn't have anything. All we had is like this little pillow-looking thing
Yes.
on top of our knuckles, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
That was the only protection.
So those
we
white ones with the elastic. Yeah, I remember those
Yes.
from back in the day.
had.
Yeah.
And the elastic never lasted more than a week.
Neither did the pad, really.
and you know, and you know the pad. You know, it always reminds me of those things that seamstress have to put the pins on.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
what it
pin
reminds
cushion,
me.
yeah.
Yes, that's what it reminds me of. It's like, really? Is this going to stop them from rearranging my face? Like, all right. It's actually more to protect your knuckles than to protect people's faces, but all right. So going back to that, I used to punch the walls of my house. Now in Venezuela, construction is not like here where you have drywall.
I was about to ask this question.
It's brick, cement,
Oh,
and
God.
rebar. So when
Wow.
you punch a wall,
Yeah.
if you punch it hard enough, you're breaking, not the wall.
Right. Yeah.
So I used to punch, you know, as much as I could until, you know, it started hurting so bad that I couldn't punch anymore. But, you know, my knuckles were always bruised and red. I had problems, you know, afterwards, opening and closing my hand, you know. So I'm in my room, just, you know, bam, bam,
Yeah.
bam, just punching the wall. And it drove my mom insane. Like, she
Wow.
would yell at me, stop punching the wall. It's like, you just care that the walls are getting dirty.
Wow.
But it was like that kind of thing where I remember the first time we did I think it was a yellow belt, which in our system we only had 7 belts, right?
Yeah, you're old style, like me, where it's just like, yeah, there's a few, and they're a big jump in between. You had to know stuff, and there's a lot of training in between each one. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a new belt every 6 months or
No,
whatever.
no. It took years
Yeah.
to get to a new belt. So I went from white to yellow, right? And yellow was the next. Usually that's how it goes. You know, the next stage. I think I was a yellow belt, and it was me, a black belt, another yellow belt, and a white belt. And they go, okay.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Henry Mosquera. Coming up next week, I connect to Virginia and I talk with martial artist Stephen Mullins. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jackal Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.